Hey guys, just gotten out of the bath. Tarke, you want to go to bed, but then they released development manifestos, and you don't believe me, I'm not wearing any clothes under the shirt. Hogchamp. Okay, let's get into it. Breach and Legacy as core game mechanics. Breach. At the end of Breach League, we discussed that we didn't need to work out what we were doing with Breach immediately due to the nature of the next league, Legacy. In Legacy, players had access to past leagues, and Breach was one of the most popular options. Breach offers a change in gameplay, and its rewards add a lot to the Path of Exile play experience. While we know Breach resonates with our players, it is one of the more intrusive leagues we've run. Agreed. This was an intentional part of the design, but it makes it problematic for us to add freely into the leveling process on a permanent basis. From 3.0.0 onwards, we will not have difficulties, so we have to carefully consider whether mechanics like Breach are worth the disruption they cause to the leveling experience. Okay. We will therefore add Breach to maps, but not to main leveling content. Okay. Breach is now have a 10% chance to occur in maps by default. I can get behind that. We will also add a sextant mod available at all tiers that guarantees at least one breach will occur. That I'm less into. The 10% chance is great. I was saying they should just make it like I said 20% chance, but 10% chance is really cool. I'm into that. Breach comes with a number of unique items that fill various roles and builds. I really want to keep the access to them, so this is really cool. If you're happy with most of these, though, they'll be making some adjustments to Hand of Wisdom action and Hand of Thought of Motion that leads into it. Who cares? The added lightning damage of these weapons will no longer be global and instead only apply to each specific weapon. This doesn't seem as big as it really is because the Hand of Wisdom action build was already kind of getting screwed over with like the Volpack CI change. So, who cares? The value of the flat lightning damage will also be increased given the new restriction to 1 to 5 lightning damage added to attacks by 10 int this weapon on Hand of Thought and Motion and 1 to 10. Space has been nerfed. Breach has been a significant element of the last Challenge League, so we're happy to be able to add the system's maps. They haven't said anything about increasing like splinters though. So if you're only going to be getting it in maps, that means that less people will be acquiring splinters, and most people who sell splinters are the guys who aren't running aren't running all the maps, all the crazy stuff to get all the extra splinters to then run the bosses. That makes sense? A lot of the splinters I think were coming from people who were just like leveling and setting them on, not the high-end farmers. So there'll be less splinters available. Might mess around with the cost of certain Chayula stuff, but okay. Legacy. The Legacy League succeed in being an excellent celebration of challenge leagues of the past. Players enjoyed the control over their experience of the game. Players were able to participate in old leagues and in particular play their past favourites. Sort of. This also gave players a much easier access to league-specific uniques. Agreed, and this is a good thing. I like having access to old uniques. This is the main thing which I like about Legacy. There were a few elements that worked less well with Legacy. There was difficulty in properly communicating how to engage with the system, and after players had learned how, they had to put considerable effort into maintaining 3 league zones and not accidentally using them when they did not mean to. Good, they understand there's micro. Players also wanted to engage with the very rewarding league zones that had mods, which need to be reasonably rare. Cool. Zana. The normal way players engage with past leagues had too much overlap with Legacy League, and needed to be changed to not provide the same access. This left us with limited options, spiders, and what was implemented for Zana in 2.6 wasn't received well, spiders. While we look forward to using Legacy again at some point in the future, we will not be adding it to the core game at this time. We feel it provided too much overhead for newer players and is something we'd like to reserve for special occasions. League zones will therefore not function in normal leagues and will no longer drop. At the beginning of 3.0, Zana will once again provide access to past leagues. Reliquary keys, which provide access to Legacy unique items, will continue to function after they transfer standard and hardcore, but will no longer drop. To be honest, I feel like they could have done something with reliquary keys. We were happy to be able to provide access to these items as a last hurrah in a nostalgic-based league, but in 3.0 we'll be looking forward and will not be offering these Legacy items again. We may make use of the foiling effect or a reliquary key-like system that drops different uniques in the future. Seems cool. We are glad our players enjoyed Legacy League and in greater numbers than ever before. So, Breach is here to stay. Pogchamp. Really Pogchamp. Slightly worried about the splinters, but cool. Slightly worried about the sextant that will guarantee at least 1 breach. At least 1. So, if there's a 10% chance of breach spawning into just a map, and then there'll be a sextant which will guarantee at least 1, which implies multiples, you could even get 2 or 3, then that's going to make proper sextant blocking even more important, which means that sextants become even more powerful unless they add more things to dilute the pool of good sextants, but they might be messing with Atlas. So, Breach, good. Sextants, worrying. Access to the Breach items, potentially worrying with less, like, lower players feeding into the economy. And I would include myself in that. I would often sell off a lot of my splinters. Like, I ran a lot of Tull and Ash runs, but I didn't run any Chula runs this league. So I was selling off my Chula splinters and then running Tull and Ash, for example. So in that case, I would be a feeder player, and I will be able to feed less Chula splinters, I would assume, unless they mess around with the rates, because I'm countering less while leveling. Okay. We knew this was going to get nerfed, so that's fine. Legacy might potentially come back in a future system. Zana will be reverted to her old form, hopefully with some improvements. I find it weird that they kind of highlight that it gave access to these Leagues of Uniques, but then don't explore like where that could go. But they're aware that people like having access to these old Uniques, and we will have some access through Zana. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with it. You guys know my thoughts on Legacy and League Zone, so I won't gloat too much on that point. But yeah, no, I think it's good, and I do like how they say that they kind of understand the flaws of the system, so going forward, hopefully they'll avoid those kinds of systems in the future, but they can still make very rewarding leagues. So if you are someone who's upset by this, remember Perendus existed once, and people were really upset that Perendus wasn't in the game anymore. More rewarding things have come since Perendus, more rewarding things will come after Legacy, and because Legacy isn't going into the core game, there is now more development space for GGG to design very rewarding leagues, because it's not going to be added on top to this pre-existing mechanic. But anyway, I'm Tarke, I'm going to bed. GGG, stop releasing development manifestos at 1 in the morning. Have a good day. Bye-bye. Peace.